The Adventures of Bob the Cat. Bob the cat had been living in the woods for a while now, ever since he had been chased out of his old home. He was a little scared at first, but he quickly discovered that the woods were full of interesting things to explore. The Adventures of Bob the Cat. He had made friends with some of the local animals, and he had even found a cozy spot to sleep in a hollow tree. He was starting to feel at home in the woods, and he was excited to explore even more. The Adventures of Bob the Cat. Suddenly, he heard a strange noise coming from the other side of the woods. He was curious to find out what it was, and he decided to investigate. He started to make his way through the trees, following the sound until he came to a clearing. The Adventures of Bob the Cat. In the middle of the clearing was a large, colorful tent. Bob had never seen anything like it before, and he was instantly drawn to it. He cautiously made his way closer and peeked inside. The Adventures of Bob the Cat. The animals all had funny hats and strange costumes on, and they were talking and laughing. Bob had stumbled upon a circus. He stayed and watched the show, amazed by the acrobats, jugglers, and clowns. The Adventures of Bob the Cat. At the end of the show, the ringmaster approached Bob and asked if he would like to join the circus. Bob was thrilled. He said yes, and he quickly became a star of the show. The Adventures of Bob the Cat. Bob had a wonderful time at the circus, and he made lots of new friends. He was sad to leave when the circus moved on, but he was excited for all the new adventures that lay ahead. The Adventures of Bob the Cat. Bob had been traveling for days, and he was starting to get tired. He had been exploring all the different places the woods had to offer, but he was starting to miss his old home. He was beginning to think he should turn back. The Adventures of Bob the Cat. Suddenly, he heard a noise coming from the meadow. He cautiously stepped out of the woods and saw a small cottage in the middle of the meadow. Bob was surprised and intrigued, and he decided to investigate. The Adventures of Bob the Cat. He cautiously stepped up to the door and knocked. After a few moments, an old woman opened the door and looked out at him. She smiled and motioned for him to come in. The Adventures of Bob the Cat. The old woman told Bob that she had been living in the cottage for years, and she was always looking for company. She invited him to stay with her, and Bob happily accepted. He was excited to have a home again. The Adventures of Bob the Cat. The old woman told Bob stories of her adventures, and Bob listened intently. He was fascinated by her stories, and he soon found himself wanting to go on his own adventures. He knew that with the old woman's help, he could do just that. The Adventures of Bob the Cat. The old woman had agreed to help Bob on his adventures, and they were getting ready to set off. Bob was excited and a little scared, but he was ready for whatever the world had to offer. The Adventures of Bob the Cat. The old woman was a wise and knowledgeable guide, and she taught Bob a lot about the world. She showed him which plants to eat, which animals to avoid, and even which stars to look for in the night sky. The Adventures of Bob the Cat. Eventually, they reached a large city. It was bustling with people, and Bob was amazed by all the sights and sounds. He was excited to explore, but he was also a little overwhelmed. The Adventures of Bob the Cat. The old woman showed Bob all the interesting places in the city, and they soon came across a large theater. The old woman told Bob that this was the place to go if he wanted to find adventure. The Adventures of Bob the Cat. The sign said, "The Great Adventure Company, come join us for the journey of a lifetime." Bob was excited and a little nervous, but he knew that this was his chance for an adventure. He stepped inside and never looked back. The Adventures of Bob the Cat. The Great Adventure Company was hosting a show, and Bob was the star. He was a natural performer, and the crowd loved him. He had never felt so alive and so free. The Adventures of Bob the Cat. The show was a success, and Bob was feeling happy and confident. The old woman had taught him so much, and he was ready to take on the world. He made a silent promise to himself to never forget what he had learned. The Adventures of Bob the Cat. The next day, Bob said goodbye to the old woman and the great adventure company, and set off on his own. He traveled for days and nights, exploring all the different places the world had to offer. Everywhere he went, he felt free and alive. The Adventures of Bob the Cat. Eventually, Bob reached the coast and looked out at the vast ocean. He felt a sudden urge to explore the unknown, and he decided to build a boat and sail away. He was sure that great adventures lay ahead. The Adventures of Bob the Cat. He built a small boat and set sail. He was sure that this was the beginning of something wonderful, and he was ready to explore the world and find his destiny.